Hello, everyone. Welcome to the March 2021 UARC meeting. We have with us our regular cast of characters. Say hello, Morris.
Hi, Morris.
That was a hi, Morris, not a hello, Morris.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hello, Morris.
There we go. Anyway, let's dive right in. Morris, what do you have for classes going on and coming up?
Okay, well, we are almost done. We're down to the last couple of weeks of the current sessions of technician and general classes. And in the middle of next month, middle of April, on the 12th of April, which is a Monday, we will start teaching a new session of technician classes. And on that Wednesday, the 14th of April, we will start a new session of general classes. The classes last for 9 consecutive weeks, start at 7 p.m. and are online on Zoom. And if you are interested in joining one of those classes or you know somebody that is, please have them send me an email at my call sign, AD7SR, that's Alpha Delta 7 Sierra Romeo, at ARRL.net.
Okay.
Back to you.
All right. And what's the cost of those classes, or what do people need to bring, as it were?
Oh, thank you. You need to bring your own computer with a microphone and a camera. You will need a book, which is the current ARRL license manual for the class that you're taking, either technician or general. If you live in the Salt Lake area, you can contact me to see if I have one available. I have in my possession several general books, but I'm not certain if I can get a hold of some technician ones right quick, but I can find out very quickly. They would be on sale for $33 a piece, which goes to the club. I don't get anything for teaching the class. And when the class is over, you will have to register online for an exam session. That's it.
Okay, sounds good. Now, if once you've taken the class, or if you have schooled yourself and want to find out where to take an exam, go to this URL right here, hamstudy.org/sessions. There are in-person sessions occurring here in the Salt Lake Valley and other places around Utah, but you need not go to a live session. There are being held around the country several online sessions with where you can take part on those. So you do not need to find a live one, but I believe W5YI group with Garth, W7PS, they've been holding 2 sessions a month for the past couple months, and they've been working out pretty well. So let's see. One of the questions that will come up too, I'm sure, in the next months is, what are we doing about field day and steak fry, Morris, to put you on the spot?
Well, we're not absolutely certain yet. A lot of it depends on what the medical people recommend. And so we will go certainly by their recommendations. We have already reserved the site that we use every year, have been using every year for the last several years. So that site is reserved, but whether the club will sponsor a field day up there or not has yet to be absolutely determined. The board will take into account what the medical recommendations are and make that decision hopefully more than 30 days ahead so that everybody can be prepared. And we will keep you informed as developments occur. Things are moving faster than we originally anticipated. And so, but one of the things that we will probably require is that if you attend this, you will need to have taken both vaccination shots and use a face mask. that appears to be medical recommendations currently that will probably last through the summer.
Right.
And as I said, we'll keep you informed as we know what's happening for sure.
And I take it
And
for the stake fry, it's the same sort of thing,
right,
right?
exactly.
We have reserved the spot in the canyons just in case. We've hedged our bets. I'll also mention that we're still on schedule for on the Leamington project. Chuck, tell us where we are on Leamington as far as progress goes and what we have done, and briefly explain what the Leamington site is and who can use it.
Okay, well, I don't know about that last question, but the Leamington site is a remote HF station that's down near Delta, and it's accessed over the internet. So there's instructions on our webpage that you need to read first and then ask for permission to get added to the list of users. It's been in operation for 3 years, I think, and with just wire antennas, and we've wanted to add a beam, and that's in progress right now. We have the tower. We bought the beam that's half assembled in my garage. Final assembly will have to occur when we get there because it's a bit big. 18 by 38 feet. A 5-band log periodic, and all the stuff that goes with putting up a tower. We're still collecting a few last minute things, but that's ready to go up.
Chuck, do you want to mention which bands those are?
Well, it's five bands, so 20 through 10, including the work bands. So 2015, there's 17, 15, 12, and 10. So that's a work in progress. We're waiting till spring for better weather to tackle the logistics of installing it.
Yeah, I think we're tentatively planning for sometime in May for the parties, and this is a big enough project that it will certainly take more than one trip and work party down there, because it'll be going on the top of an existing 65-foot tall AT&T long lines tower, and then there'll be 22 10-foot sections of row 55 on top of that, which will be guyed and bolted to the base of the tower, to the platform up there. And then we got to get the mast and the antenna on top of that. So it'll be lots of fun, but it should be cool when done. Just briefly, that that is available along with a remote in central Utah run by WA7X, Glenn, to all UARC members that have a general class license or higher with permission. So that's one of the perks of belonging to the club, is you have access to two, count them, HF stations. So anyway, all right. I'll let you get unmuted and waken up and all that stuff, and get your best face on, John. And I'll allow you to introduce yourself and the topic. Take it away.
All right, let me get my screen share going here, and we're going to try an experiment. We'll see how well it goes here. I've been kind of clocking the delay, and it's about a 30-second delay right now, so maybe this idea might work. It might not, but it's always fun to experiment. So I put in the YouTube chat. Also, if you go, make sure you don't go on the tab you're on. Otherwise, you'll leave the stream. But on a different tab or a different window, try going to that menti.com, and I just put it in the chat on YouTube side, and there's a code. What that does is that allows you to give me a little thumbs up, thumbs down on the slides, and actually we're going to have a couple poll questions coming up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strategically stay on that slide, because on that other window, when I advance my slides, it kind of closes the poll. And so I'm going to try and see if I can delay that.
I haven't seen your comment on the YouTube chat yet.
Hasn't that come through on the chat? Let's see.
Not on mine, at least.
Okay, it's on the screen. Let's see. Let me post
Anyway,
that again.
I'll let you work that issue.
Okay, we'll let that go for a minute here. Maybe Chris here can respond back and let me know if he's seen that in there. Anyway, let's just start with the introduction. We'll roll with it. It's an experiment. I just wanted to see if this would work. So, welcome. My name's John Jacobs, W7DBO, and the topic of this is getting prepared and staying prepared. It's sometimes it's the easy part is getting prepared, and the hard part is actually keeping your equipment going. I always joke that if an amateur operator could select what time we would have our major disaster where we're called into service, it would happen just right before field day, because that seems to be the time when we're at the tip top of our equipment and we're ready to go. And the worst time that we could have a natural disaster happen would be probably 2 to 3 weeks after field day, when we're not really sure what truck took what equipment home, where everything is. Things are pulled out. Our propane tanks are empty. Our generators are dry. Our batteries are low. And so that's always the difficult thing is trying to figure out how to stay prepared. And so that's kind of the topic. And this kind of, and I prepared this mostly for my benefit to try and think about how I prepared, because, as we all experienced, and this goes to a larger preparation topic, just not emergency preparedness, but, a year ago, we started seeing things tighten up, and it went from 0 to 60 really fast on supplies. And luckily, from a couple of years prior, I'd kind of followed the swine flu, and I had purchased a bunch of N95 masks and squirreled them away in a box. And so we started seeing masks go quick. Of course, toilet paper was the gold standard on if you had toilet paper, you apparently were royalty. And so things went really fast. And then all of a sudden, right when things were just going crazy, we had that wonderful earthquake. And I've sat in on a lot of tabletop exercises with emergency planners. And if an emergency planner came to the table and said, in those tabletop exercises, they go through and they give a scenario to everybody at the table, and they say, okay, let's talk through this scenario. How would we respond? And the scenario is you're going to be in a pandemic, and then you're going to have an earthquake. And because of that earthquake, there's going to be a chemical release at Kennecott that is going to possibly, if the winds shift, evacuate a large number of people that are already out of power and not able to hear the announcement. You would think the tabletop exerciser was going a little too extreme on their deals, but that's really what happened to us in March. So I kind of started thinking about, how do we stay prepared? Because, as soon as my table started shaking, the first thought I had was, what's the status of my generator? What's the status of my fuel tanks? What's the status of my batteries? Where's my radio? Is everything, if I had to turn on the radio in 5 minutes, how would I do? And so that's kind of the beginning of the genesis of this topic is how to get prepared, and more importantly, how are we going to stay prepared? So we'll get here in a second. I'm going to flip over in a poll and then see if those that are able to get in, and I'll stay on this slide for a bit. Where are you at personally? Are you ready to roll? Or you give me a few hours and I'll be good, or you give me a few days, or I'm nowhere near ready to go. I need to go shopping first. We always joke that, we can go up in the mountains and live for a week, our family. And then I think about it, I say, well, that's after we went to Walmart and looked like hoarders, that we stocked up on enough food that we were able to go up in the mountains for a week. And so we'll get everybody to try and get in here on the poll. But so while I'm doing that, just a little bit about me. I'm a third generation amateur radio operator, general class. I have the call from my grandfather, Jake Jacobs, W7DBO. And most of you might know my father. He's been pretty active in the Utah community, Larry Jacobs, WA7ZBO. And so that's my history. I work in public safety. I have an education degree and IT. And so I kind of work in curriculum and technology with public safety. And so so I'm seeing the polls coming back in here. Yeah, so we're pretty much the winner is give me a few hours, and that's where I think a lot of people feel like that's where they're at in this process. So what we're going to do is we'll walk through just a little bit about me, and this kind of just I like doing field operating. I have a podcast, field radio podcast, and I have a YouTube channel dedicated to operating in the field. So that's kind of where my home is. I do have a home unit, but mostly when I find time, I'm operating in the field. And so this is just pretty much as we're scrolling through here, my setup for something like we help out with Latoja or Bear 100 or some of those events in the backcountry. And then lastly, how you can get a hold of me. So I have that field radio podcast, or I operate a blog at W7DBO Whiskey 7 Delta Bravo Oscar.net. And that's where I kind of keep all my articles and pack lists and equipment lists. That's where I kind of reside to kind of share the knowledge. And actually this presentation will get uploaded somewhere on one of those. So if you want the slide decks and look at something. So another poll question, and we'll hang out here on this slide for a minute as I talk past it, is, what's your barrier to becoming ready? For some people it's money. It might be time. It might be just, you have money and time, but you don't have knowledge, or is it a lack of interest? Maybe you're not interested in preparedness, or you don't have that priority, or is it just organizational skills? Do you feel like you have everything? You just haven't found a way to be organized with what's going on. And so those are kind of the things that you can look at and see, where this will be interesting to see where we're at. And I'm seeing the rankings coming in now, and it's looking like time, that's a lot of things come down to just competing interests and time. So what I like to talk about, if you've ever heard me present it, some of the Hamfests or other things, is field expedient equipment. And that's kind of a key term that I like, that says, are we portable? What is field expedient? It's portable. Well, define portable to some of our soda guys. Portable might be ounces in a backpack. To the military, that might be portable to them as a C-130. And we need to be organized with our equipment, because no matter how portable we are, of course, if we're not organized, we're not going to get very far. We're going to start grabbing everything, including the kitchen sink, when it's go time. And then we need to be tested with our equipment. We need to just understand our equipment. We need to test it. We need to field test it. We need to be knowledgeable about it, and it needs to be modular, because if we put everything in a big shack in the box, and everything's in there, what happens the minute you just want the radio? Well, you tear the radio out, and now you have a dysfunctional unit, because you harvested something out of that unit, because you just needed the power supply, or you just needed a battery. And so last thing is being understood. So we have portable, organized, tested, modular, and understood. And so if you have successfully completed, got all these checked off, you're going to have field expedient equipment. And that means you're going to have equipment that you can readily take out to the field, and it's going to be ready. So what we're going to go through is not necessarily all the organization, but how do we stay prepared with this equipment? What are some things we can do? And along with this, there's a chat, and so I'm kind of watching the YouTube chat, and also there's a Q&A feature inside this Mentimeter. So either way, if you want to send a question, we're open to kind of just have a little bit more discussion here, and share your ideas as we think through these things. What have you thought about? Because like I said, I'm kind of in this boat too, where I can organizationally think through in my head what I want to do. And we've been taking preparations for quite a while to kind of be prepared. So the first thing is looking at your items that are expendable, your supply rotation. And so you have expendable batteries. These are your batteries, your AA's, your AAA's, anything you have And hopefully all your flashlights are running AA or AAA, and you don't have a fun little CR whatever battery that's very incompatible with going around and rating all the remotes in your house to replace your batteries if needed. And then kind of thinking about other supplies is medication. Do you have a go bag at home that has a change of clothes and all your current medication? And then, of course, food and water when you go to your 72-hour kits, 96-hour kits, and then identify any type of other perishable, expendable items. And a strategy you can do for this is put it into a rotation. So if possible, insurance companies are kind of funny with this. Sometimes you can get your doctor to write you a second script, or you can try and get medication early. But if you have an extra 30 days of medication on hand, you don't want to just squirrel away that medication in a bag in perpetuity, because it becomes expires. So if it's medication that doesn't have to be refrigerated, think about taking your new bottles of medication that you're not going to be using for 30 days, put it in that jump bag, put it in that go bag. And then when you go and refill your prescription again, pull the ones out of the bag and use those prescriptions, and put the new ones that you just got filled, put those in the bag. And so you're constantly moving things through the bag. Same thing with batteries. We go through AA and AAAs here at the house quite a bit. So if I always know that the ones in the bag are the freshest ones, and when I go to replace a remote or I go to grab some batteries for the kids, if I grab it out of my go bag and then right there I move the new batteries in, I always know I'm cycling through these expendable things. Same thing with food and water. We all buy, cases of water for the summer, and we take them out when we go camping or whatever we want to do. So throw your fresh water in the trunk, and then when you go to use the water in the summer, grab the water out of the trunk and buy, when you buy new bottles, always finding a way to transfer those food and snacks and everything through your emergency bags, your go bags, your jump bags. And then you just kind of follow that same process with any other perishable or expendable item. And that way you can find a way that things don't get old and stale in your kits. The next thing is dedicated tools and accessories. So a lot of times especially when you're heading to field day, you go into your shack and you start gathering up tools. Well, if you're gathering up things, say in an emergency or under stress, you're going to tend to either forget something critical, or you're going to tend to take too much, because you're going to start looking through a bin and you're going to say, oh, I might need this. And then pretty much you just grab the whole bin and go out the door with it. If you're in a rush. And so identify, if we go through all of our shacks, we could probably find enough duplicate equipment. It might not be the nicest tool. It might not be your fluke meter. It might be just that free one that you get with a free coupon at Harbor Freight, so you might have a meter that's your old one that you've replaced, or, you got a set of dikes that you're not using, or just separate, or if you just go to a Hemfest and just find older tools, and then you can move that the secondary equipment, put it in dedicated bags out with your gear, so you don't have to go raid. You're not raiding the pantry, you're not raiding your ham shack and stuff like that. And Clint has a really good comment. He says, writes the acquisition date on items that might be perishable stored, especially even if you think of bottled water. That's really hard to know when you got that case of water, but even that bottled water is not meant to last that long. So yeah, definitely just jot down with a Sharpie right there, because that way you don't have to try and read the expiration dates or anything with that. So just think of anything you have, electrical cords. Every time this, if you do field day or you go out in the field or you're going camping, think of how many times you walk into your lawn shed and grab your weed whacker mower extension cord, or you go into the garage and steal the extension cord off the wall. And think about, now I'm taking this item that is not readily packed. It's just because I have time to pack. I know that I'm going to go get this extension cord for the generator, but how about, just grabbing an extra cord or a more used cord and packing it in a bag and setting it on top of the generator. That way you don't have to think about that. Same thing with antenna cables. anything you find yourself hunting around the house, trying to find, think about, if I had a second one of those, and maybe that's how I get organized, is I spend a little bit extra money, find some second items, and just make those my dedicated field items. And that goes a long ways to being field deployable rapidly. And then any other items you can think of that, like I said, if you find yourself hunting around, if you do a little exercise, just role play in your mind someday when you got some time on a Saturday. Say, okay, I need to be field portable in 2 hours, and I need to expect my assignment to be more than no more than 24 hours in length, but it will be overnight. And then just think through your head, what exactly do I need to do to get out the door? And if you find yourself moving, if you find yourself not being able to take things right off the shelf wherever they are in the garage or in a shop, and moving it to your car, if you find yourself saying, "Oh, I need to go grab this item or this item," then you're hunting too much. And maybe if you don't have the ability to get all these extra items, a clipboard just sitting with your gear that has a checklist that says, I know in order for me to leave in 1 hour, I do need to go to the lawn shed and get that really nice extension cord. So I'm going to put that on the list. So I walk around with a purposeful pack list in my hand that I can check off. And so I don't find myself randomly hunting, because then you overpack and become overburdened with your gear. Okay. Next kind of area is charging strategy. And I think we've all, struggled with this over the years, especially with AGM or lead acid batteries, trying to keep those things happy, trying to find that happy medium and not cooking them, not letting them, sulfate and die out on us, knowing exactly what the life is on those things, in trying to keep them in peak performance. And so, if you have a charging station in your house, and hopefully this is something where you can have them within eyesight, because last thing you want to do is take a battery and of course put it downstairs and now it's off gassing. But if you put it in the back corner of the garage or in a shed that you're never seeing, then you may be cooking your battery and you have no idea, because it's out of sight, out of mind. And my father just showed me actually his Goal Zero 150 stopped working, started discharging fast. He popped the lid off it, and the battery mushroomed and expanded inside it. It cooked itself. And so you just got to think of, like, if I can have my charging station for all my batteries, I'm going to put in Placid Point, like all my Goal Zero batteries I have downstairs, right at the bottom of the stairs, right where I walk around the corner, where I'm either growing indoor plants for our garden, or I'm going to the cold storage for food. And so it's somewhere where I'm passing through several times a day. Or if it's in the garage, it's right within eyesight. So every time you pull your car into the garage, every time you get out of the car, you can see your line of batteries with your trickle chargers, and you can see they're all lit up, and you can kind of visually see, and then you don't forget about them too much. And knowing that, batteries like to be exercised, they don't like being trickled all the time. So in the winter months, maybe when you're not using your batteries as much, maybe hook them up and just put a load on them and draw them down, and just, exercise your battery. Luckily with LifePo 4 batteries, at least like with the BioEnos, talking to their reps, they have about a 1% discharge per year, which means you don't need to trickle charge these. You don't need to periodically check them. You just need to know once a year, you need to put a charge on them. And so that's why the LifePo 4 technology is such a blessing to us, because I can guarantee once a year I'm going to pull down all my LifePo board batteries, and I'm going to drain them somewhere in the field at least once a year, and then I'm going to put a full charge on them when I get home. And then just thinking about your charging strategies, those little AA and AAA batteries, the rechargeable ones that are sitting in your kit, find time when you're going to do that. And then also your radios. My Kenwood radio loves to just self-drain its battery. I swear I put it in and I charge it, and next time I go to grab that HT, it's dry. There's just too many little circuits in there that want to run. So a good practice is to just disconnect the battery from your HT when you put it in your bag. Just kind of pop the battery a little bit, separate the contacts. That way, the gremlins that climb inside your bag and turn on your power, it's not possible if the battery is completely disconnected, and it helps with some of those drains. And then another idea that we have from he was the number one activator for National Parks on the Air, Stuart Thomas, is that he takes these flags, and they're just little they're keychains. They're kind of funny things. They say remove before flight or remove before firing, or they're fun little keychain flags. If anybody's been anywhere around aviation, you know there's different flags that are around on the airplanes that say, you know, before taking off you need to remove this. He takes that and puts it on a painter stick, and then drops it in his bag, and that means that he has done something to that bag to make it not ready. He's reached into it to pull a radio out or a cable or something. He's done something to disturb that bag, because he runs off and does quite a bit of SOTA activations and park activations. And he came up with this after he hiked to the top of a mountain, got up there and realized that he had pulled his primary antenna out of the bag before the trip. And he thought he was going with a perfect kit, and he was missing one item. And he said, luckily, he had this really terrible rolled up wire that he was able to use as a backup and make some contacts and activate that summit. But after that, he said, you know, anytime I mess with my bag, I'm just going to drop this in there. So that's a good way to know that your bag's not ready, because you've done something to it to make it not ready. And then ways to know how is it ready is to be able to just make a checklist for the bag. So whatever it is, a box, a bag, a jump close. I take just a simple piece of paper and do 2 columns, and I write all the inventory items that are on the bag, and then I check them, because sometimes some things might not be in that bag that I had on the list. And so at any time I can open up any of my bags, and I can see all the items that should be in the bag, and my check mark saying that these are the items that are in the bag. It has a list of equipment, and then at the bottom I put last time I packed it or repacked it, and then last time I charged the batteries in this bag, I'll mark that on there, and then any items and notes. So I'll put some notes on there, like, you know, or I'll put lines through, like, okay, I don't need that. I decided in this bag I'm not going to have this anymore, or moved it to another bag. So that's helpful, because if you have multiple bags, like I like doing, I like having a bunch of separate bags. It's helpful because you open up and the first thing you see is this checklist. And then so you're not grummaging around looking for that one antenna that you could have swore was in that bag, because you can see, is it in the bag? Because I can see a check mark, or it's got a line through it, or I put a note that I said, you know, my signal stick antenna, I don't have in the bag because of X, Y, and Z, or something broke and I haven't replaced it. And so those are good things to have, is having some type of checklist. And then you just drop it in the bag, and next time you go to look for the bag, and if anything is out of that bag, that's when you drop your flag on the outside of the bag or box saying it's not ready for deployment. And then a couple other items before we wrap up here is just having, like I talked about, if you have everything in a shack in a box, or you have everything in one bag, all your items, all your eggs are in one basket. You know, what happens when you decide to pull that radio out, or pull the battery out, or pull the power supply because you're working on some other project, and you've effectively made that whole unit non-functional, because a lot of times, especially when you're doing special events, you're not needing everything. You're not needing the HF and the VHF. You're just needing one or the other, or you're operating a vehicle or in a tent, or you're just doing HT. And so if you take everything and get really modular with it, and like showing here on the screen, you know, the radio is separate from the battery, and the battery is separate from the solar charge controller, and the solar charge controller is separate from the shore power. And that way, so I can mix and match, and I can say, well, I'm going somewhere there's going to be a generator, and I want to have battery backup. So I'll grab my radio and my battery and my power supply. Well, I'm going somewhere where I know I'm not going to have power. So I can go ahead and leave my power supply box at home, but I want to grab my solar charge controller. And if you have that modular ability, you can grab the items that you need, and you don't get overburdened with too much equipment, and you don't become very portable. Or you can maximize your money. If your solar charge controller is not embedded in your radio battery box, if your solar charge controller is separate and your battery separate and your radio separate, well, then you can say, well, I only need 1 or 2 solar chargers for several batteries. I can own 4 batteries, but maybe I only need 2 solar chargers instead of 4 batteries, 4 chargers, 4 radios. Or maybe I just need 1 radio, but I need multiple batteries. If I have a long deployment, I may need to swap out the batteries. So, different things like that you can mix and match readily in the field, and you're not finding yourself digging in with a pair of dikes, cutting wires in the middle of your package because all of a sudden you had something unknown where you didn't realize you might need to charge someone else's battery with your charge controller. And so that's kind of keeping everything separate. The next idea is have some type of biannual inspection of your gear. I used to be able to say you could do it on the time changes, but now they've crunched the daylight savings time so early that's not a good standard. So maybe do it on the equinoxes, or just know when kids go back to school. That's the end of the summer. I'm going to check all my gear, make sure it's ready for the winter. You do that with your vehicles, you do that with your gear. Is just make sure you're ready for the upcoming winter, and then say sometime in the spring, you start looking at, is my equipment ready for the summer? And so those are 2 good ways to do it. If you're of the LDS faith, it's pretty easy. You just have your October and April conferences, and that kind of reminds you to do that. But just think of when you're going into winter, you want to, change out your vehicle. You want to get all your winter gear. You want to get that, snow scraper back in. You want to check the tread on your tires. I want to repack I've been having fun all summer with my gear. Now I'm going to repack it for the winter. That's a good time. And then when things start warming up and we start getting antsy to get out in the field, then that's a good time in the spring to also check your equipment and make sure it's ready. And so just having this ability to always just have a schedule, whatever works for you, whatever works best. Just try and think of, what can I do to remind me, to change the batteries in my gear, and possibly change my smoke alarms, or whatever method you have to kind of renew the items around you. And then just some final thoughts, and I'm still watching the chat, so if anybody has any questions, you could did I say biannual? Good. John Brewer caught that. I said my slide said biannual. I meant semi-annual. So sorry about that. So yeah, twice a year. So some final thoughts is, practice your deployment. These are things that until you really get out there in the field, you don't understand what your capabilities are. You may know what your equipment's advertised to be, but especially until you get into backcountry, and you don't know what your capabilities are. You don't know what your skill level is. You don't really know what your gear can do. You don't know your battery until you're able to check that. And so just practice your deployment, understand your capabilities. And the minute you get out there and the minute you get far enough away from your home, you're going to know what you wish you wanted, and you're going to look around and you're going to know what you wish you didn't bring. And you'll quickly realize the things that you have with you that you really don't need. You realize the things that you do need. And I always talk about it. If you're going to package up some gear, first put it together in your shack and say, okay, this is my kit. And then just walk into, this is my favorite one, is you walk into the wife's kitchen or the front room and you say, okay, I'm going to set up and become operational in my kitchen. And I'm not going to walk back to the shack. I'm not going to walk to the garage. I'm not going to walk anywhere to get any equipment. I'm going to see if I can successfully plug everything in. I have all my adapters. I have everything I need. Or I'm going to go out on the back porch and I'm going to set all this up, and I'm not going to walk back in the house. And you'll find yourself how many times you walk back in the house, say, okay, I guess I'm not ready to go. And so you deploy yourself in the backyard until you can go out in the backyard and set everything up, and you're good to go. And then go a little bit farther away from home. Say go to a park, go somewhere and set up and say, okay, I can successfully set up my kit. And now because I'm a little more open, I'm either in my backyard or the park, I can get some contacts. I can start testing out the equipment. The last thing you want to do is wait until field day or wait until you get to the top of the mountain to do a soda activation, or you get 50, 100 miles away from home and for a camp out and you realize you forgot X, Y, and Z. And so if you just practice your deployments on small scales, then you're ready for larger scales of, when you go camping and you're able to take your equipment, you're able to do field day, and then you feel confident in your pack list and in your gear. You feel confident that you can be deployed in some type of emergency situation. And then when you get back from wherever you go, whether it's you volunteer for a special event or you do field day or just have a debrief, and especially field day, if it's a club thing, have a debrief afterwards. What did we bring? What didn't we need? What did we need? What would be nice to have? What would be redundancy? And you just kind of do your own personal debrief on all the things you packed. Did you pack too much? Did you pack not enough? And you can just evaluate through experience is truly where you gain your skill. And then lastly, just deploy and, go on public service events. When I do public service events, people will come up and say, well, I'll start another poll here so it'll catch up with everybody. People come up and say, oh, it's so great you're volunteering for this event. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, this is such a great opportunity for me to figure out if my capabilities and figure out my equipment, and it's so much better to actually pass live traffic. And, I kind of feel like, well, I'm getting a benefit out of this too. And so, yes, so public service events or just public events, there's enough opportunity out there to serve and use our talents and skills. And then just think about, if you're not into public service events, what contests do you have? You have the radar challenge twice a year where you set up and operate, and then you have to move a certain distance in whether that's walking or driving or paddling or bicycling. Then you set up and make 5 more contacts, and then you move again. It's a rapid deployment contest. So if you're into contesting and you want to put a mix into that, or soda operations or something like that, you try and think of ways you can do, or with the grids chase, find a contest that is working grids, and then go out and if you really want to get a lot of contacts, figure out what grids locally around here are pretty rare, and go plant yourself in a good spot in that square if you're a contester, and you can have that. So kind of the question we have now are, what are 3 things you're going to do to become ready? So these are 3 ideas that hopefully if you write them down now, you can kind of commit yourself to figure out, what am I going to do to become ready? And we've already got, charge equipment, set up in the backyard, reorganize, those are all 3 things I need to do. I'm pretty good on the batteries now, especially after this last year. But my kits, like everybody else, they get a little pulled down. And so when you come back from any one of these deployments, that's the time to, when you come back from camping, that's the time when you're draining the septic tank out of that trailer. You're right there next to the propane tanks, most likely, depending on where you do your septic dumps. Go ahead and have the guy top off your propane tanks. You don't have to wait for those propane tanks to be 100% empty before you fill them. I've taken them in when I had questionable, and I didn't know how many times I've used the tank, or when I was camping, I didn't know how much I ever rolled over to that second tank. There's nothing wrong with just topping them off, just like a gas tank. And when you get home and your water is empty on your trailer, or you've got water containers, top those off. There's nothing wrong with filling those up, so you're ready to go the next time. Pull your batteries, get your batteries out of your bags, or if you're in their boxes, and go ahead and top them off right when you get home, because the longer you go from your deployment, the more out of sight, out of mind everything is going to get, and then you're going to get caught with that fun rolling earthquake in March, and you're going to have to start having that aha moment, thinking, what last time I camped, what was the state of my camping supplies? What was the state of my my portable stoves, my Dutch ovens, everything like that. And with your radios, wow, what did I do with that radio? I pulled it out for Latoja. Did I ever put it back in the bag, or did it end up getting put in a box in the garage and pushed aside, or stuff like that? So just thinking through that, and so there's some really good ideas coming up. Looking at my other screen here, just study, or look at my handhelds. Are they programmed? Are they ready to go? You look at batteries, but are your handhelds and are your radios programmed? I mean, I keep the VHF Society book every year. I get one of those, and I throw it in a different bag, because that has all the repeaters. So if my radio's not programmed right, I know how to program in a repeater, and so I just grab that little handbook. And it also helps when you're traveling around the state. If you ever get stuck in a town and you're stuck and having some issues, it's always a quick directory to look up, what hams are local in the area that, may be able to help me out. So, just keeping your stuff, looking at the other things, going outside or look at your gear. Those are all great ideas. And so, just checking here to see if anything's come through on the chat. So that is pretty much what I kind of had for this presentation. I'll get it back over here to the gang and see if they have any questions that have come in that I haven't really picked up on.
Let's see. Say something about the fact that a lot of people put totally different gear in their grab-and-go kit than the stuff they use every day. And then when it comes to using it, they don't know how to use it.
Yeah, that is a hard thing. So I don't know how I picked up on this, and it's maybe just because it's the hand-me-down equipment that I was given. But somehow I always found myself, I have ICOMs for HF, and I have Kenwoods for VHF, UHF. And I had a Yaesu, but I sold it because it was just a different way of thinking, a different way of programming. And so even if you have you say you have an ICOM in the house and an ICOM in your portable gear, at least it's the same brand. And so you kind of follow that same nomenclature or the way it programs, and you kind of can understand, once you understand an ICOM, whatever your preference is, if you're an ICOM guy or Yaesu or Kenwood. But another thing that I do is, and I had this actually happen to me, is my Go box is my shack box. And that way I'm practicing on nets. I'm always operating on the radio that I'm using in the field. And I went to do a training item one time for my father, and I went to talk, and he's like, yeah, your mic's a little scratchy, a little crazy, move around. And we were trying to figure it out. Well, by doing that training item and doing a net check-in, I found out that my handheld mic cable was damaged. Well, I was also scheduled to go up and do the Squaw Peak that next weekend. And if I didn't do that net check-in on that specific radio on Tuesday, I would have gone up on Saturday with an ineffective radio, and I had to roll to some type of backup. So yeah, using the gear in the shack, because think about it, you're in your shack, you got nice lighting, you got air conditioning, heating, all the elements are in your favor. You have YouTube, you have Google, you have manuals, you have friends, you have phone a friend. And now think about taking an unknown piece of equipment out in the woods with no YouTube, no Google, no friends. Hopefully you brought your owner's manual, and it's untested. And so, yeah, definitely, if you have the capability, and that saves you a lot of money too, is just make your shack radio your field radio. And then that way you just have to close the lid on it and maybe unplug a couple things, and you're good to go.
Okay. Yeah. Say something about, there's that conundrum, whereas lead acid batteries require that they be charged all the time in order for them to last the longest time. But lithium batteries last the longest time if they're only like a third to half charged. And that's a contradiction toward being prepared. What's your thoughts on that? You just live with the fact that they'll die sooner, at least non-LiFePO4s, or what?
Yeah, lithiums. I just try and avoid the lithiums. I know, a lot of times people see, at one time I was really excited about using those jump batteries that you use to jump your car battery, and I thought, man, this is a great battery for radio. And then I plugged it into a lantern camping, and the thing was dead within an hour. Because those batteries are meant for high discharge, short performance. You think about the LiFePO4, they're the lithium deep cycle battery. The problem with the lithiums is their voltage maintains, and I've ran this on a West Mountain Radio CBA analyzer. They'll hold their charge right up till the very end, and then when they drop off like a rock, and you have no idea that your battery is going to die until it dies. Whereas lead acid and AGM batteries, you have that gentle slope, and you can always tell when you're getting close to a weak battery. And so that is, and the thing is if you look at the cost, you can afford to buy a LiFePO4 battery. If you look at how many charge cycles it has and the life of the battery and the amperage you're getting out of it, it's equal across the board, but it's a very large upfront purchase. Whereas, lead acid batteries or AGMs, something like that, they're very cheap to come across. But if you look at the lifespan of how many times are you going to have to replace that battery, you're actually almost better off getting, for your performance, you're getting a LiFePO4. But sometimes we just don't have that option. I have plenty of both batteries, and I can do that. And I saw one question come in over on the other side is, when traveling, what is your strategy for contacting local hams from the VHF Society list? What about when you travel outside the area? So I use that VHF Society list. I just keep it in all my go bags because if you have a call sign, you're in the family. And a lot of times, if you need help locally within a town, you start calling up some hams, and hopefully you've made contacts with them or they understand your predicament. Traveling outside the area, it's just on the National Simplex. We were at a rocket launch in Florida, and my father and I, we were following each other in vehicles, and we were talking Simplex, and we were trying to find the best place to watch this rocket launch. And sure enough, a ham came on and said, "Hey, we're with the local club here. We're simulcasting the rocket launch audio on this frequency. And where are you at?" And he gave us turn-by-turn directions to pull in for a perfect spot to watch the launch. He told us exactly where he wanted to be. And then after that, he invited us over to the local breakfast club to come meet the local hams afterwards. And so, just staying on those simplex frequencies when you're outside of Utah. It's really hard to know. I mean, it's hard for us to know in Utah what active repeaters there are. It gets even more difficult when you're traveling, what repeaters are active.
Okay. What's the one thing that you see over and over again that you see other people do or don't do that makes you lose your more hair than anything else?
People that, and of course it has to go to social media because that's where I've lost enough of my hair over the years. People will get on and they'll say, how many amps do I need to operate, my radio? And there'll be somebody that'll give them the exact, you need exactly a 20 amp hour battery and you will be able to last, X amount of hours. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Let's think about this for a minute. Your battery consumption is so unique to you. What radio do you have? What light are you using? What battery do you have? What condition is the battery in? Do you have a tuner? How do you operate? Are you maintaining what's your duty cycle? Are you talking 50% of the time and listening 50? Are you running a frequency? Are you pouncing? Are you moving around the dial? Are you constantly retuning? We never know exactly how much battery consumption we use until we actually go out in the field and you attach, a little battery meter, those little guys that have power poles on each side. You can buy them really cheap on Amazon, but if like for less than $15, $18, you can buy one of those power meters inline. But if they have power poles on the end, somehow they magically turn into $40 items because those power poles are magical. So you think about it, just having the just go out and operate, and however you measure your battery, measure your amp consumption, and that's exactly how much battery you need for your personal unique situation. So that kind of drives me, a little bit crazy, understanding how much battery we need. You'll never know until you get out in the field.
Yeah. As we all know, I'm sure that holy wars have been fought over what batteries are best. Let's see. I'm looking at the YouTube comments. Dave Sauce mentions that he keeps the manuals for his gear on the phone, and also the nifty guides in his kits, which is probably not a bad idea. I personally am a fan of things that don't require batteries or boot up like paper.
But they're very convenient in the dark.
What?
But the phone ones are very convenient in the dark.
Right. I just hate this tiny, tiny screen, but you take what you can get. Then he has primary cell, like AA's and stuff for all his HTs, cases for those. I have, and one thing to remember is a lot of HTs that can take batteries only don't work on high power for very long at all with the standard pack. I have an old ASU 5530 that was able to get 10 cell packs, and that'll run for months, of about everyday use on a set of nickel metal hydride batteries.
Yeah, some of the newer radios, they automatically won't let you go into high power at all.
Right.
They'll keep you down. Yeah.
Right. And Laird Severinson is asking you to talk about the field charging of lead acid versus lithium iron phosphate batteries.
Okay, so you just have to know that when you have solar charge controllers, so you can always use the same solar panels, but you have to use a different solar charge controller between the three types, the three prominent types, which is your lead acid versus your lithium versus your LiFePO. Some solar charge controllers have the ability to switch. Most likely they'll switch between lithium and LiFePO. But you just need to know that your solar charge controller needs to be programmed correctly to whatever battery chemistry you have. And so for me, it's very easy. I just have a solar charger that's meant for my LiFePO and a solar charge controller that's meant for my AGM. And then you can use the solar panels as long as you know the rating of your solar charge controller, because you can plug in too many panels into the solar charge controller. So you just have to figure out to make sure that you have the right amount of solar panels that can be handled by the charge controller, and that your charge controller is compatible with your battery. And then your power up sequence, which is something that's not much shared very much. But talking to the Bioenno guys, they said you want to plug your battery into your solar charge controller and get the solar charge controller to boot up and to get configured to the battery and understand the battery and the state of the battery. Then you charge it, you plug in your solar panels. If you plug in the panels first into your charge controller and then the battery, it's actually the wrong sequence and it causes issues. So always remember battery, charge controller, solar panel.
Right. I noticed increasingly a lot of solar chargers will not even power up on solar power alone. They require the battery to be there.
Yeah, they're getting a bit smarter.
Right. I'm a bit more, I have both lead acid and LiFePO 4s. I've been using LiFePO 4s for about a dozen years now when they first came out, and they've way outlasted any lead acid battery. I think my 10 or 11-year-old ones are down to about 70% of their original capacity, whereas all the lead acid batteries of that vintage, or even normal lithium batteries, are landfill or hazardous waste at this point. Yeah. So, but essentially, one of the things to remember is if you try to charge lithium iron phosphate battery at the same voltage you would charge a lead acid battery, you'll be lucky to charge the lithium iron phosphate battery to 20% of capacity, period. I mean, you'll never get any farther than that, no matter how long you leave it on. 13.6 volts for lead acid and 14.6 for LiFePO generally.
Yeah, and don't look past charging in your vehicle. I mean, Goal Zero specifically sells adapters that can plug into your car and charge your battery while you're driving. So a lot of soda guys that use those really lightweight, 4 and 5 amp hour batteries, they'll charge on the go when they're driving between point to point. So don't always just think that the only way to charge in the field is solar. You still have generator, which is kind of, burning a lot of gas, of course, to charge your batteries. But just think about maybe a simple power supply if you have chance to stop at an RV park, or you're at a place that happens to have power. So don't just think solar might be your only option in the field. There's always other options. One thing I was going to say about those guides, I love the nifty guides. I like the idea of keeping it on the phone. I keep all my manuals on a jump drive and all my software just in case I have a laptop, because I do digital modes. In case everything goes terrible, I have a jump drive I can plug in and load my software on. But also think about making your own nifty guide. The nifty guide is how someone logically thought about how to use your radio. But think about the top 10 things you always do with your radio and write those down yourself, and make your own nifty guides. So you have the things that you always seem to go to the most with your radios.
One of my pet peeves, though, are the quick guides that have everything the radio does on them, and you cannot find the things like most of the features on the radios I have, I never use and would never ever use. But
yeah, that's why I say
right.
make your own guide. I love the nifty guides just because it's a lot more portable and easier to use than the full manual. But yeah, make your own guide and write down the things you find yourself doing the most. And if you ever get stuck and you can't find something that's on your guide, write down on that piece of paper right then, I tried to do this and I didn't know how. And then when you get home, update your own personal guide with whatever steps those were.
Changing the subject slightly, one of my pet peeves is people who program 400 memories into their radio rather than ever learning how to enter frequencies from the keypad. And even for the most Chinese radios, it's not that hard to do once you know how to do it. Is it you that does the exercise of, all right, we're all together, we're going to use this other frequency that is not in your radio. Anyone who isn't able to do it flunks or something. Is that you that does that?
Yeah, we've played that game before. We've said, everybody take your antenna off your radio. It just broke. Go get your second antenna. Are you still on the air? Your battery just died. How are you going to go? Or yeah, let's jump to let's QSY to a frequency and let's see who can go there. And there's been some discussion locally about, how to organize frequencies. And what I do is the top 10 frequencies in all my radios are the ones I use. And then I took the whole intertie system and I've grouped it in the Simbad and the Skyline. And then I grouped, some of my digital frequencies, APRS, stuff like that. And then I looked on the Utah Valley, or not Utah Valley, but the Utah Amateur Radio or VHF Society. And they've published all the simplex frequencies, several simplex on 2 meters and 70 that are available for safe use. And so I plugged in all those ones. And then I plug in some other, more popular ones, but I kind of group them, but always remember those simplex ones, because you're always afraid, especially on 70 centimeters, you don't want to drift too far because you don't know if you're talking over a link. And so that guide is always helpful to say, we have several, and one of them is, we joke with my family, it's the search and rescue frequency, because our family has a dedicated, one of those simplex frequencies is our dedicated family frequency. That's what we kind of talk, maybe car to car or when we're ATV riding. And I happen to take a ATV swimming in a pond while up in the Uintas, and I was trying to get on the Skyline, or it was a Simbad, because it was there up in Vernal. I got a hold of a local ham, and he was able to try and call, for help. But my parents were out of cell phone range. And the whole time I'm monitoring this just family frequency. And sure enough, my dad came on and called me and said, "Hey, where are you at?" And I told him the exact trail I was on and how my ATV was bobbing in the water. And he came and got me. And the only way we were able to do that was we had an agreed upon family frequency, and it was on one of the legal simplex frequencies. And we knew that if we ever need to get to each other, void of any repeater, we know where each of us are going to be sitting. And so that's something you can take away with your families.
Well, you allude on something that a lot of people just simply forget, and that is to have a plan in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. There's a saying in the aviation world. It's better to be on the ground, wishing you were in the air, than being in the air and wishing you were on the ground. Always have a plan. Looking forward to, what is the weather, and not having there. That's the other aviation thing, is having that get there itis, saying I have to get there. I'm going to go past my personal safety minimums. I'm going to stretch myself. Last field day, I was up high Uenas, and boy, those thunderclouds rolled in heavy and hard. And I finally got to the point where I'm just like, this is not, worth putting a lightning rod in the tree for. And so you just have to be prepared to say, we have a plan, and at what point do we call off the plan? And unfortunately, people don't have that. They don't communicate where they're going, or they don't have that. What's my personal minimum? What is going to take me to turn my car around? And unfortunately, we saw that with the study that came out with Kobe Bryant's helicopter crash. It was just the pilot flying beyond his technical ability because he wanted to get their itis. He wanted to get there, and too often that happens with the Kennedys, with their plane crashes. And so you just have to realize, we've had times when we wanted to go up to Bear Lake in the winter to the cabin, and we were like, the weather is not there, and we're not going to put ourselves in a bad situation. But yeah, definitely just let people know where you're going, when you're going to be back, those simple things. If you leave your vehicle, leave a note on the vehicle. I'll be back at this time, goes a long way. I'll be on this frequency, type thing.
Do you have anything else you want to mention as parting words then, John?
Yeah, I just say, get out there and get on the air. It's a fun thing. I enjoy, I live right next to some really huge power lines. I have a really high noise floor. There's not much I can do at home except, some digital modes. But yeah, just, have fun, get on the air. Don't take it, too heavy or too serious. Just kind of experiment next time you're camping or next time you go on a hike. Just throw a radio in your bag, even a simplex handheld, and go up on the peak, and whatever you're doing, just try and find ways to enjoy the hobby. I always say my 4 goals is, get on the air, stay on the air, be an effective communicator, and have fun. And sometimes we forget that number 4. We forget this is a hobby, and we should be having fun. So I hope everybody gets out and gets on the air in the field.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes, and especially if you learn about them.
Definitely.
When you do something wrong, that's fine. When you repeat the same thing wrong again and again, that's what insanity, I guess, according to Einstein.
My blog website, w7dbo.net, I put it in the chat, and you can put that in lower third. I'll upload this slide deck. It's a Google slide deck. I'll send you the link, and so you can link directly in the lower third.
Okay, thank you very much. What do we think next month's meeting is going to be about? I'll put you on the spot. Hopefully you already looked it up.
Oh, okay. Put me on the spot. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I believe when we spoke last time at our last board meeting, that we were entertaining the idea of having Randy Culloway, WI7P, give a presentation on at least one of the digital modes, maybe a couple of the digital modes, FT8 in particular. And that's usually a pretty good subject to go over. It's very dynamic. It changes a lot. There's always some new algorithms that are coming about, new software. And so for those of you that want to learn something new or brush up on something that you already know about, it should be a pretty good presentation. That's Randy Culloway, WI7P, for the April UARC meeting.
Anyway, we appreciate you, everyone, for coming to the meeting virtually. I guess one question that might be coming up is, when are we going to hold in-person meetings again? And that'll probably be the same answer as whether or not we'll have steak fry and the and an in-person field day, and also when the U of U lets us hold meetings. And I guess a follow-on question would be is, will we have these virtual online meetings when we have the real ones? Because people will probably be hesitant to come out for a little while. Well, we don't know, because that's we'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. But it's worth thinking about.
Because of the university involvement there, my guess would be, and it's just a guess, that they will not allow us to hold in-person meetings before September.
Right. So we're not going to worry too much about it till at least after the summer break. So anyway, we're keeping our options open and our ear to the grindstone, although I would not know why you'd want to do that. So anyway, thank you everyone for dropping by, and we hope to see you next time, and everyone be safe. 7-3.